Hello, Baker aka Imacuttlefish here, and today I will be discussing a topic that has been on my mind for like 5 years, no joke. I just never had an opportunity to discuss it, but a recent game update finally gave me that chance. So, patch 6.1 brought with it some changes to A Realm Reborn. They added budget trusts to those dungeons, they reworked/streamlined some of the more annoying ones, but most significant is that they did some big reworks on Cape Westwind, Castrum, Praetorium, and the La Habrea fight. Talking about those changes could be a topic of its own, but what I want to focus on in this video is that the Atma weapon fight was changed from being a part of the Praetorium and made to be its own triumph, but interestingly it was also given a hard item level sync, similar to things like Ultimate and Unreal fights. So instead of syncing to whatever is the max item level for that level, which at level 50 is typically I1330 if you have higher item level gear, it forces you to be I60 no matter what. I was honestly shocked that they actually did this, and that's what allowed me to finally open this dialogue that had been on my mind for a long time, as I stated at the beginning. FF14 often gets a lot of praise for the way it handles old content. The level sync is great because it allows new players to experience the content properly, and experienced players are rewarded for helping them. However, we should make one thing absolutely clear: that system is not perfect. Not by a long shot. In fact, it has quite a few flaws that I have observed over the years. The main three for me are: 1. Players wanting to go back and do the old content on min item level no echo cannot experience them properly because you deal way too much damage, among other drastic imbalances artificially speaking. 2. Likewise, for players wanting to do old ultimates, it's almost like you have the freaking echo in those places, and it absolutely saddens me how badly you can steamroll them. 3. Some duties, particularly those earlier on in the expansion, become an absolute joke through Duty Finder when that expansion becomes old. Now for points 1 and 2 regarding min item level and ultimates, I am not going to address those points today for the following reasons. I intend to keep this video shorter than my typical longer analysis videos, and including those into the subject would increase the length by a lot. In addition, those topics are more complicated to cover. Finally, I feel it isn't very compatible with discussing the Duty Finder stuff, since the Duty Finder discussion is more casual oriented, while talking about min item level and ultimates is more hardcore type of content. So perhaps another time. So now that we got that out of the way, let's focus solely on that third point. Now, what do I mean with duties becoming easier as an expansion becomes old? This has to do with how item level syncing works. Instead of explaining broadly how it works, let me use a specific example to bring this point across more sharply. Let's take the final boss of 4.0, the Shinryu fight, otherwise known as the Royal Menagerie. That trial is level 70. It came out with the expansion patch, and being the final encounter of that patch, the developers expected players to enter it with AF3 gear, which would be item level 290. Then time passes and we enter Shadowbringers. Now most of the player base will be at level 80 when they queue for this through the trial roulette. What happens is that for those level 80 players, the game is like, okay, their gear is above level 70, so we just sync it to the max possible item level that was obtainable at level 70, which would be item level 400 gear introduced in patch 4.4. What you have here, then, is that everyone who entered that fight through the duty roulette will now be at item level 400 when the fight was designed for around 290. That is over 100 item levels. Now, it's hard to really visualize how much 100 item levels is, but suffice to say, that is a massive difference. And this is exactly why, if you get Shirnier from the duty roulette, it's usually a curb stomp, because of that huge item level advantage. Also, I mentioned players who queued through the duty roulette specifically having the item level benefit, but it could even apply to the person manually queuing for it while they do the story. They could have leveled past 70 and grabbed some basic Shadowbringers gear, which would bring them close to, if not above, I400. So why is this important? Well, if I am to be frank, it kinda makes the fight shit. You do not get punished for failing the mechanics. You skip half the mechanics anyway, you skip a ton of cool stuff in the fight, and the fight simply won't feel as epic. Sure, the story surrounding the fight will remain the same as it was on release, that won't change, but me personally, I consider the gameplay aspect a huge part of what makes overcoming those adversities more memorable. After all, if the fight didn't matter, then why not just watch it on YouTube like a movie? My friend put it really well, so I will just repeat what he wrote to me at one point. Anybody who cares about story and immersion is getting a critically watered down experience, and that sucks big time. Nidhogg dying before the second Akmorn, meaning you don't even get the fucking chorus anymore, is especially criminal. This is something that might be hard to convey to anyone who started late Shadowbringers or indeed in Endwalker. I'm not saying that to be a gatekeeper, by the way, I mean as in you literally wouldn't know how some of those earlier encounters and raids were on content, so it's not like you have a comparison. So if you're someone who started recently, I'm going to tell you how it's going to go. Do you like that new 24-man, Aglaia? Well, let's say you decide to queue into it 2 years from now, maybe for some glam, or maybe you simply got it from the duty roulette that one time it decided to give you something else than the Crystal Tower. What you will quickly find is that pretty much all the challenge and fun will be sucked out of those encounters. You'll just blitz through it, skipping half the mechanics, nothing feels threatening anymore. Likewise for Endsinger and basically any content released till like 6.3. I'm no prophet, but I guarantee you that will be the experience. So maybe that will help add some context to those of you that started recently. Because I definitely feel that for you guys it may not seem like that big of a deal. It's just a matter of getting to experience it. Doing a fight on content and getting a good experience, then doing it 2 years later and it's some dogshit watered down version. That's what I'm talking about here. So now that we have identified the problem and understood why it's a problem, we can go back to the beginning of the video, the new Atma weapon fight. What I am hoping is that they will consider addressing other bosses too, like Thordan, Nidhogg, Shinryu, etc. But how to actually implement this? This is where the discussion becomes a little more technical. The first question is, which encounter should be item level synced? The other is, how will you incentivize players to do these duties that will now take potentially a lot longer than previously? There are many ways to tackle these questions, but it's important that as players we understand that it's a bit trickier than just flipping a switch. That's why I'm a bit skeptical about them ever addressing this issue, because it is a little technical. But maybe something will happen, who knows. Alright, so I wanna address one more thing before I close up here. Just because you hard sync the players' item levels doesn't make the fight like it was on release. There are plenty of factors that go into a fight becoming easier over time, beyond simply the item level difference. Just to mention a few. More people having cleared the fight as time passes, thus the pool of players who don't know the fight will become smaller and smaller, in contrast to the people that do. The player base becoming better at the game. Consider a raid like Final Coil. It took 5 days for that to get cleared when it came out. How fast do you think it would be cleared if it released now? Less than 12 hours? Players simply become better at the game as time passes, so a fight that was considered difficult 5 years ago won't be anymore, as there are more and more challenging fights to overcome. Jobs becoming easier to play and do more damage at those lower levels. This point, similar to the one I made earlier, is hard to convey to someone who started only recently, but jobs absolutely do become easier to play over time. What's more, often they become terribly unbalanced at the lower levels because the developers don't really have the time to fine-tune them at each level bracket. Balancing them at max level is difficult enough. But if you are interested, look at the job you are playing the most and check how they played in Heavensward or even Stormblood, and you will probably be surprised. These are just a few things that come to mind, so yeah, there absolutely is more to this topic than just item level. However, the item level aspect is something rather concrete and something that one can actually influence. It's the most obvious thing to go for addressing the situation. But if it isn't enough and the fight is still underwhelming with a forced item level, then you may have to take it a step further and start addressing the fight itself, as they did with those encounters in this patch. Like I said earlier, it's a very technical topic, but to summarize everything and put it simply, it is my belief that by tackling the item level issue, you will greatly enhance those old fights and improve new player experience, and make this amazing story even more amazing in the process. I am definitely curious if any of you feel the same way. This topic gets brought up so rarely in the community that I am not sure where people generally stand on it. Would you want to see other fights get hard item levels synced? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching, have a nice day.